Hello and welcome into the Pole Position, your first source for news and information in the world of NASCAR and all of motorsports. Garth McMain's here alongside Andrew Moore. I forgot your name there for a split second. I don't know why I did that.
I haven't been here in a while.
I know, you seem to have disappeared from this show.
But I'm back and better than ever, hopefully.
Hey, we got to improvise sometimes. But don't forget, before we get started on things, there are ways you can interact with us, and we love to hear from you. Email us, PolePositionShow@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook, Facebook.com/PolePositionShow. Or you can tweet at us. I am at GMcMains14 on Twitter. Andrew, do you have a Twitter?
Well, I do, but I don't use it. I don't know how to.
It's the same thing Tommy said, but at least give it to him.
It's at MoreDogs87.
I'm regretting that decision already.
I'm never going to use it.
I wouldn't with that name.
As if you do tweet me and I don't respond, don't worry about it. It's because I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay, so on that note, if you need to tweet at us, tweet at me. Because unfortunately, I use my Twitter. I don't like it, but I use it because I'm part of the media. So
Nah, I don't really tweet. I just whistle.
okay then. Anyway, I don't even know what to say to that. Let's get into talking about the trucks here before Andrew comes up with some weird comment again.
I love trucks.
Okay, well, truck race. Cole Custer winning his first truck race this weekend in New Hampshire. 16-year-old Cole Custer.
And I don't like it. That kid's younger than me, and he's out there doing what I want to do. And it makes me feel like,
You want to race Camping World Trucks?
hell yeah, I want to race Camping World Trucks.
You can't say hell yeah.
I can't.
Actually, you probably can, but we're gonna
It's
keep
YouTube. There's worse
yeah.
things out there.
Whatever.
We'll
Just
cut that part
keep
out.
going with your
We'll
comment
cut
here.
that part out. 16 years old, and I love racing. Obviously, this kid does too. But I want to know exactly how do you start off at a young age? Like, what kind of racing do you have to do as like a child in elementary school to prepare yourself for when you're 16? He probably doesn't have his driver's license yet, but yet he's racing in this.
He's 16. He should have his driver's license.
Well, okay, probably. But there are all these young kids out there who's just kicking butt out there racing on the oval tracks and all that stuff. And
I don't think you can get a NASCAR license without having an actual driver's license, too.
if you have a comment on that, you can tweet him.
Thank you. Yes.
Well,
if you
can
know the
add
answer,
to the
I'm
conversation.
pretty sure I know the answer to that, but because Andrew doesn't normally know what he's talking about anyway.
I
But
know. It's besides the point.
it's neither here nor there. But a great race, though, all around. The trucks always put on a great show at New Hampshire. The first time they'd been there since 2011. Andrew, tell us your thoughts on that race.
Well, first of all, like we just said earlier, 16-year-old won his first race there. That's probably the highlight of the night, right?
It was during the day, but yes.
Well, you know what I meant. So that's the first point I'd like to make, is that a super awesome 16-year-old just won his first truck race.
Very humble 16-year-old, I might add. I listened to him in post-race interviews, and he's about the most quiet, shy person you will ever meet. He's the exact opposite of Andrew. Literally, they were interviewing him, and he'd give like the shortest one-word answers because he was so shy and didn't know what to say. It was kind of funny.
Give him a few years and he'll warm up to the cameras and the fact that he is probably a rising star.
Oh, I'm sure.
Next Chase Elliott.
I don't know that I'd go that far, but he does have a lot of talent, and I definitely see him going far once he gets to be 18 and can actually run full schedules in NASCAR. I mean, it's going to be a couple years before we see him running a full schedule. He's not going to run a full schedule next year because he'll be 17, but 2016, excuse me, he will, I'm sure, be running a full schedule somewhere. Interestingly enough, the truck he drives in the Truck Series, the 00, owned by Gene Haas, co-owner of Stewart-Haas Racing, but is not affiliated with Stewart-Haas Racing. They run it out of Ken Schrader's dirt shop.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes. So I found that pretty interesting to find because I know I'd noticed whenever he was racing, he was sponsored by Haas Automation, which is Gene Haas's company. But I'd never put two and two together that was actually a Gene Haas truck. I didn't even know Gene Haas really had a hand in the trucks. And actually, the trucks they get come straight from Turner Scott Motorsports, which is one of the like 2 or 3 best teams in the truck series. So,
well, that explains why he won. He had a good truck.
well, exactly. I mean, if you're driving for Gene Haas, you're not going to get the crap. So, I mean, look at what they got in the Cup Series.
It's
I mean,
clearly not a starting park.
yeah, well, yeah. Well, I mean, granted, in the Cup Series before Tony Stewart kind of came in on that team, Haas CNC Racing wasn't doing the best, but they definitely have elevated above what they were in the past. Running down the top 5 here, or the top 10 even, we've got some really interesting young names in this top 10. Bubba Wallace coming in second, very close there to getting Cole Custer at the end. Matt Crafton leading on the final restart, missed a shift, dropped him to third in the final running order, allowed Cole Custer, who had dominated the whole day and fallen back on the last set of pit stops, to get the lead back on that final restart. Johnny Sauter and 16-year-old John Hunter Nemechek rounds out the top 5. Joe Nemechek's son. He and Joe have been splitting that ride this year, doing very well. That truck in the top 5 in owner points from the finishes they get combined from the two of them. So very good runs from Joe and John Hunter so far this year, and another great one from John Hunter.
Like father, like son.
There you go.
Couldn't put it any better.
Cameron Haley coming home in 6th in his first truck race in that 32 truck for Turner Scott Motorsports. Eric Jones, who we've talked about a few times here on the show, 51 truck for Kyle Busch Motorsports in 7th. 8th, Tyler Reddick running for Brad Keselowski Racing. Joey Coulter comes home in 9th. And Ryan Blaney, 3rd in points, comes home in the 10th position. So a great race here from the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Andrew, your final thoughts here on the truck race before we move into the nationwide race.
Well, I'm a fan of the trucks. I think the trucks are probably one of the most interesting races to watch just because of the way they perform differently from the cars. And when you have 16-year-olds winning races, Bubba Wallace, who's a great driver, coming in close second, and as simple as a misshift sounds, that really will drop you a few positions. So if he could just watch those, then he'll do great in the next race. Other than that, I think that was a great show.
And speaking of Bubba Wallace, trying to slowly work his way back into title contention here, did not gain any ground actually on Matt Crafton in this race because he did not lead a lap, and Matt Crafton did get a bonus point for leading laps, so still 35 points back, but still right there where he can pounce if Crafton and Sauter have problems before the end of the year. Ryan Blaney slipping a little back toward Bubba Wallace now, still in third, 24 points back, and the gap between Crafton and Sauter has grown very slightly now to a slim 7 points, so a very close points battle in the Truck Series as we go down to the wire there. Nationwide Series from Kentucky, Saturday night, the VisitMyrtleBeach.com 300. A surprise winner there. Well, I say surprise winner, but RCR was strong all weekend, and I really had a feeling that one of the RCR cars was going to win this race, but I did not expect Brendan Gaughan to be that RCR car to win the race. This is only his second nationwide win ever. He picked up his first nationwide win earlier this year at Road America. This is a guy that's been around NASCAR for a long time, has had some mild success in the Truck Series, has bounced back and forth between all 3 series at different points, has been in the Cup Series, did not have much success there, has been in the Nationwide Series at different points, hasn't had much success there until this year. And all of a sudden, now he's got 2 race wins under his belt, and he's won on an oval, which is something he had not done yet in the Nationwide Series. And it was amazing to see him take that lead on the final restart. Had not led all night, or I take that back, had led earlier in the night, but hadn't dominated. Had been up there around the top 5, but hadn't really done all that much. Ty Dillon had absolutely dominated that race, and I thought it was going to come down to Ty Dillon or Chase Elliott for that win. both of them battling really hard on the final restart. Brendan Gaughan comes out of nowhere. Restart, 4 laps to go, blows by these two battling side by side, coming out of turn 2 on the restart, and just takes off, does not look back. It was ridiculous how he just blew away with this, and a great win for Brendan Gaughan.
Yeah, when I see drivers just continuously pull away like that, it always kind of confuses me. Like, you think that most, like with the rules now, most of the vehicles are the same. Like they have they have to use the same engines or like the same layout or something like that. So it's really more of just a driver skill race. It's not his car is faster. It's a team that, like, if your pit crew's faster, then you're going to be faster in the pits. You'll be able to gain some ground like in that. Or if you're just really skilled, like the past couple of races with Kevin Harvick, he's been super talented, and like every time he'd go around the turn, he'd keep it right there on the line at the bottom of the bank. So I've always thought that NASCAR in general, like any part of NASCAR racing or oval racing, is just a driver-talented sport. Has nothing to do with the vehicle you're driving. So when I see things like that, it makes me wonder if maybe I'm wrong.
Well, you bring up an interesting point there, and I do want to shed some light on that. In recent years, the car itself has gone to being more generic and being the same, especially that Gen 5 car, that car tomorrow they came out with. They were all exactly the same. The only difference between manufacturers was the sticker on the nose. The Gen 6 car has changed a little bit from that. There are differences between manufacturers now. The cars are slightly different. The car frames themselves are the exact same. The bodies are a little bit different by manufacturer, and the engines are all different. There are certain engine manufacturers for each manufacturer. In the Cup Series, I can't remember if these are the same for the Nationwide Series, but I know for the Cup Series, for Ford, you have Roush Yates and you have Penske. Penske makes their own engines. Roush Yates, I think, makes it for basically everyone else in the Ford camp. Chevy, you've got Hendrick and ECR, Earnhardt Childress. And I believe those are the only ones for Chevy. And then Toyota, TRD, Toyota Racing Development, makes it for the entire Toyota camp. So it's definitely not all the same engines throughout all of NASCAR. The car frames are the same, but the bodies are definitely different by manufacturer. So it's not necessarily all just the cars are exactly the same. I mean, you definitely still have the big teams with the big money are still the ones with the better cars no matter what. Now, you've got little teams that have made alliances with bigger teams and share information, have basically the same resources. They get cars from them, like JTG Doherty Racing in the Cup Series, A.J. Allmendinger's team. They have an alliance with Richard Childress Racing, so they get ECR engines, they get cars from Childress, all that stuff. So they basically are a Childress team but are not a Childress team.
And that was a very enlightening speech, Garth. Because no, honestly, I did think that, like, especially with the 5th gen cars, that all the cars were the same, and it was just whether the driver could handle it or not, or something like that. So that actually helps a lot.
Right, and I mean that's one thing I like about the 6th gen cars over the 5th gen cars. The 5th gen cars really were like that. They had taken. They were all exactly the same, but the problem with that was they weren't exactly the same. They were the same, but they weren't the same, and it was still, okay, you're in a Hendrick car, okay, you're still going to be the fastest no matter what. It's just which of the Hendrick drivers is better than the other Hendrick drivers. Now it's a little bit different than that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because NASCAR has changed a lot since even the days of Richard Petty.
Oh, yeah.
His what was it, like 72 Charger that he used to drive? They don't. All the cars they almost look the same now. Like their body styles, very aerodynamic, sleek, low to the ground. Where it used to be, they almost look like something you'd take out on the dirt and go just tear up. So,
well, we have run up on our break here, unfortunately. Didn't get too much nationwide talk here, but we'll get back on that very briefly before we recap the Cup race in the next segment. Stay with us. This is the Pole Position. And welcome back to the Pole Position, your first source for news and information in the world of motorsports. Quickly getting to what else we wanted to get to on the nationwide side of things. Andrew, 4 RCR cars, very strong showing for them. 4 in the race, all 4 in the top 6 in the final finishing order. 3 of those 4 in the top 3. Ty Dillon absolutely dominating that race, leading 155 of the 200 laps. Not coming home with the win, though. That going to Brendan Gaughan, but a very strong showing for RCR. How impressed were you with RCR on Saturday night?
If I was the team owner, I'd take everyone out.
Childress.
I know who. It's Richard Childress Racing, RCR.
You made it sound like you didn't know who it was.
I know who it is. But if I was the team owner, I'd take everyone out for milkshakes because that was impressive.
I'd take him out for something a little better than milkshakes.
I'm trying to be, it's my radio edited version.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I can go with that. I'm glad you're editing things up more than you used to. Let's run through the rest of the top 10 here, though, because as with the truck race, there's some interesting names in the top 10 here, because there was not any Cup Series regulars in this race as well. Brendan Gaughan, as we said, winning the race. Brian Scott coming home in second. Ty Dillon third. Chase Elliott with another strong run in fourth. Regan Smith, though, not letting him get any further away than he could help, coming home right behind him in fifth, although losing a point to Chase Elliott. Cale Conley comes home in the sixth position. Chris Buescher seventh. Eighth to Michael McDowell in that 22 car for Penske. Ninth was Justin Boston in the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. And 10th, Ross Chastain in the number 80 car, number 80 Toyota. Andrew, who were you most impressed by in that top 10?
Probably Ty Dillon, because, like you said, he dominated that whole race. It was unfortunate that he didn't win, that fell back a couple places, but he still got in the top 3. That's a podium. You can get a podium.
There are no podiums in NASCAR.
I know, but it's just the saying.
This coming from Mr. F1 over here.
Yeah, Garth knows I don't pay much attention to NASCAR, but I do help him out on this show, and I do bring up some interesting points, as you found out in the last series that we just did a few minutes ago.
Doesn't happen very often, but it does happen.
I do have my moments. That is true, but the top 3. They don't have medals in NASCAR either, do they?
No,
So
this isn't the Olympics.
Can't even say that's a bronze medal finish right there. If it was the Olympics, the U.S. would be proud of Ty Dillon. Be more proud of Brendan, but they'd be proud of Ty Dillon.
The U.S. would be proud as a whole because the entire field is American.
That would defeat the purpose of the Olympics, Garth.
That's why this isn't the Olympics.
Anyway, dominating the whole race, manages to finish in the top 3. That's pretty good because no one dominates the whole race and then ends up winning the whole thing. That's not a very common thing. So still being able to keep it within the top 3, that's pretty darn impressive.
No, I agree.
Thank you.
For once.
He never agrees with me, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't. So this is a rare occasion. Mark this down. This should be a holiday. So,
I remember that.
Moving on to the Sprint Cup Series here in our final, trying to do some math here, final 11 minutes of the show. A lot to talk about. Round number 2 of the chase in the books.
Woohoo!
That was weird. Team Penske fully in the contender round of the chase now, with Joey Logano picking up the win this week in New Hampshire. Brad Keselowski obviously winning last week in Chicago. Thoughts on Joey Logano's win?
I think Joey Logano is a pretty talented driver. I mean, he's not my favorite, but I do appreciate his driving style and his skills.
We're broadcasters. We don't have favorites.
That's why I said he's not my favorite, because we don't have favorites in the broadcast world. We are a non-biased broadcasting team.
Anyway,
he's a very talented driver. being able to pick up a win like this probably makes him feel a lot better about himself than in the past couple of races. He hasn't been doing so well, right?
I mean, he hasn't done terrible. I mean, obviously he hasn't won, but I mean, it's Team Penske. I mean, he hasn't done terrible. They've been on a high this year like no other.
The rivalry between the Penske team and the Hendricks team makes NASCAR exciting.
It's funny that you bring that up because
Are there no rivalries in NASCAR?
Oh no, there's rivalries in NASCAR,
Okay,
but it's funny that you bring that up because there really wasn't a rivalry there, and I'm not sure there's one there yet.
I'm feeling a rivalry coming up.
Because before this year, Penske was not. They were good. Obviously, Brad Keselowski won the championship 2 years ago, but that was Penske's first championship in NASCAR. And before that, they were there. They'd win races, but they weren't great like Hendrick was. And now that they are, I'm curious to see if there is a rivalry that develops, if Penske can sustain this over a few years and see if this happens. Because right now, Penske, I think, is on a level above Hendrick. And we haven't seen anybody on a level above Hendrick in years. So it's interesting that that has happened. Lots of chase drivers, though, having problems yesterday. Let's just run through where the chase drivers finished in this race. Kevin Harvick comes home in third. Jimmy Johnson, fifth. Eric Almirola in sixth. Brad Keselowski in seventh. Even after having a wreck early in the race, Kyle Busch, same scenario, does come home in eighth, though. Dale Earnhardt Jr. comes home in ninth. Even after running out of his allotment of tires and having to use a practice set to finish the race.
Which I'd like to throw my 2 cents on this. You watched the last bit of the race, and most of the Hendricks drivers, they all blew tires and had tire problems, and I just feel like
one did. Gordon did.
Yes, Gordon did, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. had the problem with his tires having to run on the practice set. That just, to me, that feels like if you're going to be a top contender Sprint Cup driver, you shouldn't be so careless with your tires. Does that feel like carelessness to you?
I don't think the Gordon thing had anything to do with carelessness. That was just one of those deals. You blow a tire. It happens. Junior, though, yeah, that's something that Steve Letarte needs to look at and go, why did this happen? And I place the blame on that solely on Steve Letarte and that crew. Steve Letarte should have known how many sets of tires that they had used, and that's a problem. You can't be doing things like that in a championship run, and this team seems to have plateaued to me, and I'm really wondering if they're actually going to make it to the championship round in Homestead, especially if they keep doing things like that.
Yeah, because Earnhardt Jr. has been doing great. He was way up there in the points ranking, and now all of a sudden you're running out of tires. You know how many sets of tires you have per weekend, so you should have the math done out how many laps you can get in per set of tires. You shouldn't have to run out and run your practice set because your practice tires are not as good as your race tires. So,
looking down more through the finishing order, A.J. Allmendinger with a pretty good run for that team in 13th. Greg Biffle, not so strong a run in 16th. His Roush Fenway teammate right behind him, Carl Edwards, in 17th. Ryan Newman, disappointing run in 18th. I was a little disappointed by that. I thought Ryan Newman could get up there and get a win, clinch himself into the next round. Newman has been strong, very strong at New Hampshire in the past, 3 wins there in the past. Matt Kenseth, disappointing run in the 21st position. Casey Kane, after a wreck, comes home in 23rd. Jeff Gordon, after that blown tire in the final, I want to say that was with 11 to go, comes home in 26th. And Kurt Busch rounding out Kurt Busch comes home in 36th after he blows a tire in the late laps. And Denny Hamlin, in that same wreck, comes home in the 37th position. So some very bad runs here for some of the chase drivers, and this has really shaken up the chase grid right now. Obviously, Keselowski and Logano clinched into the next round. Other drivers right now that I see, unless they have really bad runs at Dover, pretty much locked into the contender round. Kevin Harvick in third. He's 7 points behind. 17 back in fourth is Jimmy Johnson. Kyle Busch is fifth, 20 back. Tied with Kyle for fifth is Dale Earnhardt Jr., 20 back. And Jeff Gordon in seventh, 27 back. 8th to 16th, though, throw a blanket over them. 12 points apart. They could literally flip-flop at Dover, and it wouldn't take that much to do it. Matt Kenseth, 80 points back in 8th, tied with Carl Edwards. Eric Almirola in 16th is 52 points back. He's only 12 points behind Matt Kenseth, and only 10 points behind Ryan Newman in 12th. It's not going to take that much for Eric Almirola to get back into that top 12. And we were just saying before New Hampshire, it would be almost impossible for him to do it. He came into New Hampshire, 25 points out of 12th after that blown engine in Chicago. So crazy how this is like this. And let's run through all these guys that right now are in this situation, because any four of these guys after Dover could easily be the four not advancing to the next round, and this could easily bust a lot of people's brackets. As we said, 8th and 9th, tied for 8th, 40 points back, Matt Kenseth and Carl Edwards. A.J. Allmendinger in a transfer spot right now, in the 10th spot in points, 41 points back, a point behind Matt Kenseth and Carl Edwards. 2 points behind Kenseth and Edwards, 1 behind Allmendinger is Casey Kane in 11th. Tied with Kane for 11th is Ryan Newman. They are 42 points back. As of right now, your cutoff guys that would not make the next round. 13th, Denny Hamlin. He is 48 points back, 6 points behind Ryan Newman, who is in that transfer spot right now. 14th is Greg Biffle, tied with Denny Hamlin, 48 points back. 2 points behind them is Kurt Busch. He's 15th, and Eric Almirola, as we said, still in 16th, 52 points back, 2 points behind Busch, 6 points behind Denny Hamlin and Greg Biffle. Such a crazy mashup here at the bottom, Andrew. I honestly have no idea who that bottom four is going to be after Dover, because Carl Edwards, Matt Kenseth could have a bad day, and all of a sudden Eric Almirola and A.J. Allmendinger both are going to the next round, and these are two guys that I think almost everyone had getting knocked out in the first round.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly with the next knockout round how many of the bottom drivers get knocked out.
4.
So the
bottom 4.
The bottom 4 get knocked out. Okay, so my next question to you is, and this is going to be more of a personal question, how is your bracket doing after looking at this intense points difference right here? Are you feeling scared?
Believe it or not, I only have one driver knocked out after the first round that's not in that bottom 4 right now. I have Kurt Busch advancing, and I have A.J. Allmendinger knocked out. They are the only ones flip-flopped right now for me, believe it or not.
Well, congratulations.
It's probably not going to stay like that, but that's how my bracket is shaping up right now. And it could go back to that, and it could be exactly how my bracket says after Dover. You don't know with as close as they are right now.
And that's right. They are. It literally is, and this is more of a cliche, but it's too close to call.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who's going to get what because the points are so close that, like you said, one driver has a bad day, all of a sudden these guys that come up from the bottom literally started from the bottom, now they're here.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, they didn't bring their whole team with them, but they're there. So
right. So very interesting things that could happen next week in Dover. We're excited for it. Andrew, your final thoughts here before we wrap up the show, our recap of New Hampshire and Kentucky.
Like we said, crazy points difference. When I say crazy, I mean crazy small points difference. The flip of a switch, something could completely change the outcome of what both of us are expecting. I hope your bracket comes out all right. Other than that, I don't have any final thoughts.
All right, Andrew, man of few words, only when we ask him for final thoughts. It's amazing. So that'll about do it for us tonight. Don't forget, you can be a part of the show as well. Email us, polepositionshow@gmail.com. Facebook, facebook.com/PolePositionShow, or tweet at me at gmcmains14. Andrew and Tommy don't like to tweet, so don't do that.
I really don't like tweeting.
So that'll about do it for us tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to tune in on Thursday for our preview of Dover. This has been The Pole Position.